Obama is yesterday's man for the Democratic. They very much need to find a leader, and there isn't one on the horizon. They've got, really quite unimpressive people like, Congressman Chris Murphy or Governor Gavin Newsom, who we expect will probably try and run for the presidency. But there's no one on the horizon who looks like a real leader.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here with Editor-in-Chief Hugo Gurdon. And Hugo, let's talk about the state of the Democratic Party right now.
Right.
They seem to be lost without an affirmative agenda or any real leaders, right?
Yeah, that's exactly so. And the latest instance of that is the Democrats, the establishment Democrats, and in fact quite a lot of the wider party being very alarmed by the nomination of Mandami for mayor of New York. He's just a declared socialist, and in fact we should perhaps stop even talking about sort of self-styled socialists and declared socialists as though this was an aberration. More and more Democrats are socialist. Obviously Bernie Sanders was one, is one, AOC is one. Now you have Mandami there. He's talking about using actually Marxist phrases like seizing the means of production and tying them to sort of modern post-Marxism in things like globalize the intifada. It's essentially a mishmash of things that Americans broadly hate. He's likely, it seems to me, to become the mayor. If he becomes the mayor, the Republicans will be able to hang this around the neck of the Democrats leading into the midterm elections. And a very good point that Karl Rove, who was George W. Bush's kind of campaign's guru, made this week was, what's happening is that the Democrats, the base is sort of, as it were, getting more and more angry because of Trump. They want more and more fighting. The Democrats are talking about, trying to become nasty as though they're not already, trying to get dirty, fight dirty because that nothing, civility as though they think they have that is ineffective. But anger is a mood. It's not a strategy. They're not presenting the nation with anything, and indeed they don't have a leader to present it.
It seems like the last time they did have a leader that was pushing a sort of proactive vision instead of something reactionary was when Obama was president.
Right.
And he's still sort of the godfather of the party in a lot of ways. But what do you make about his public role right now?
Well, I think that his public role is actually damaging to the party. And indeed, it's perfectly clear that he is out of kilter with the party. It was very interesting to hear a CNN analyst describe him as getting scoldy the other day when he told the Democrats to stop whining. And he's right, they need to stop whining and they need to actually develop some policies. But people need to remember that he has not been in office for going on 9 years. And yet he still hangs around like a bad smell on the party. And he's just not someone to whom they can turn. He does kind of get preachy and kind of petulant in his tone when things are not going well from him. And, he was obviously a successful president electorally to the extent that he was twice nominated, twice elected. But he has now been, as it were, outdone by Trump, who has been thrice nominated and twice elected and is making more change, dramatic change. And, Obama is yesterday's man for the Democratic. They very much need to find a leader, and there isn't one on the horizon. They've got, really quite unimpressive people like, Congressman Chris Murphy or Governor Gavin Newsom, who we expect will probably try and run for the presidency. But there's no one on the horizon who looks like a real leader.
Yeah, one of those arguably quite unimpressive leaders is Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. At least the left doesn't find him very impressive right now. He took a lot of flack from the left flank of his party when he averted a shutdown in March. Do you think he learned any sort of perverse lessons from that episode that he'll take into the next shutdown fight in September?
It's a great question, Sarah, because actually he is now faced with that second question. The Senate has just passed Donald Trump's rescission package of a little above $9 billion. It's worth doing. It's not going to make a massive difference to the trajectory of the finances. But Chuck Schumer put his resistance to the Republicans and the resistance to Trump into that, and he lost. And the big question now is, does he continue to fight in the way that the base wants by leading a democratic resistance towards funding the government? Will he, I don't know whether the right word is learn from the stinging rebuke he got from the base after he voted to fund the government and prevent a shutdown, and he led a few other Democrats into that camp to cooperate with the Republicans. That wobbled his leadership. Does he now say, I'm not having my leadership questioned again, wobbled again, I'm going to fight, and be willing to have the Democrats be the party of shutting down the government? It's a great question. I don't know the answer. I suspect that he will not vote to or try and lead the Democrats into a shutdown, but that's the dire question he's faced with. And as you say, his leadership he is never going to be the leader of the Democratic Party. He's only just the leader of the minority in the Senate now, and it's not going to get any bigger for him, but he's faced with a dilemma.
Well, Hugo, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more from Hugo and the rest of the commentary team at washingtonexaminer.com.